Here's something that might shock you. Guess who Ford's CEO Jim Farley said he's paying the most attention to? Believe it or not, among the competitors he mentioned was Hyundai and Kia. When the 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5 came out, Farley acknowledged that some of its software features were actually better than Ford's. Last summer, even Elon Musk said that Hyundai was doing pretty good, and it's hard to disagree with that when you consider the Hyundai Motor Group is now the world's third largest car maker, trailing only behind Toyota and Volkswagen. Not many people know this, but Hyundai is also the third largest sellers of EVs in the US. And that's surprising because Hyundai had such a bad reputation in its early days. Today we're talking about the surprising truth about Hyundai and Kia so that you can decide for yourself whether to trust these brands or not. Once upon a time, America views Hyundai as a bargain basement brand. Public perception was that its cars were cheap, unreliable, and uninspiring. Reason is, in its early days it made a few bad apples which marred its reputation in America. But fast forward past the dark period. In recent years, the Hyundai Motor Group has started to churn out better cars under the mainstream brand names Hyundai and Kia and its luxury brand Genesis. Not everybody knows this, but Hyundai and Kia are actually closely related. It's not just because they're both Korean brands, but also both share the same parent company. That's why many of their cars share a lot of the same underlying engineering. I'm talking about similarities across categories like vehicle components, platforms, and technologies. Both brands also offer some of the best warranties in the business. I'm talking up to 10 years or 100,000 miles of powertrain coverage. But honestly, because of these shared similarities, for many consumers, the difference between Kia and Hyundai really boils down to name, recognition, and brand loyalty. But don't get me wrong, while the two brands make cars with similarities, their vehicles stand apart when it comes to styling and other unique aspects. When the 2023 Ioniq 6 came out, it was voted World Car of the Year. So how did Hyundai go from zero to hero? Hyundai first began making cars in 1947 in Korea, but it didn't enter the U.S. market until 1986. Company decisions were mostly being made overseas by executives in Seoul. When the SUV boom hit the States, Hyundai barely reacted, and because it didn't really invest in U.S. factories, it just continued to fall further behind. Well, fast forward to 2020. That's when Wee-sun Chung took control of the Hyundai Motor Group. Once at the helm, he pressed for investment in EVs and radical technologies. And Hyundai switched gears for the better. Since then, Hyundai's been hiring designers from luxury car brand to elevate the look and feel of Hyundai cars. And now Hyundai's done a complete 180. Let me put this into perspective. Tesla showed the world that a niche player could become a core player with just one model. It didn't focus on wheels and brakes, rather it focused on technology. And Hyundai was paying attention. After Chung became executive chairman in 2020, Hyundai and Kia announced plans to introduce not one, not two, but 31 battery-powered models. When interest in EVs reached a new peak during the pandemic, Hyundai and Kia were among the few car companies that had a selection of electric and hybrid models already available on dealership lots. Both companies had already stockpiled semiconductors, which helped them to avoid the brunt of the supply chain storage that everyone else had. The latest fire Hyundai has been fighting is related to social media trend that challenges youth to break into certain Hyundais and Kia cars. This impacts cars that are of model years 2011 to 2022 and which use a metal key rather than a key fob. Hyundai was sued by several states and insurers over the thefts, so Hyundai's been doing damage control. Recently, they agreed to a $200 million settlement where Hyundai and Kia would provide cash to reimburse owners for damage. The company is also providing free software updates and free steering clubs to prevent theft. Kia has a similar brand story. A few years ago, if you were to think of reliable car brands, Kia wasn't on most consumers' minds. In fact, Kia was mainly known for its low price tag. But a recent survey showed that owners of 3-year-old Kia vehicles reported fewer problems with owners of vehicles from other brands. So how did Kia do it? Well, there's no one answer to that question. Instead, it was a series of actions on Kia's part. If you ask me, one of the biggest reasons why Kia cars are more reliable now than before comes down to the Hyundai connection. Once Hyundai bought Kia in 1998, the brand's financial health and vehicle quality made leaps of improvements. Both brands operate independently, but because both companies share resources and technologies, Kia and Hyundai are less dependent on external suppliers. Another reason is that Kias are relatively simple cars. The simpler the car, the less parts, the less potential to break down and cause trouble. But now let's talk about Sang-Yup Lee. You probably haven't heard of him before, unless you happen to be a Hyundai superfan. But without this man, Hyundai would not be the brand we know today. He's the current executive vice president and head of Hyundai and Genesis Global Design Center. Before working at Hyundai, he worked for the likes of GM and Volkswagen. Before that, he had internships at Porsche and Pininfarina. Some of the most popular designs include the 2010 Chevrolet Camaro, Bentley Continental GT, and the Bentley Flying Spur. This year, Sang-Yup was named 2023 World Car Person of the Year by the World Car Awards jury panel, which is made up of over 100 industry experts and journalists. According to the WCA criteria to be eligible for the award, nominees need to have had a significant contribution to the global automotive industry with global repercussions in the past year. The contribution could be anything from a significant impact to a brand or company in safety, engineering, design, or technical advancement. Lee was recognized as a creative mind behind the Hyundai Ioniq 6, the Kona, and the Envision 74 Rolling Lab, as it is said to have been instrumental in shaping Hyundai's new design language. By the way, here's another shocker. Actually, it's the second year in a row that someone at Hyundai Motor Group has won the award. Last year, the award went to President and Chief Executive Officer at Hyundai, Luke Donkerwolk. But now, let me tell you about another famous car designer who's well known in the car world, Giorgetto Giugiaro. He was named Chief Car Designer of the Century in 1999 and was later inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame in 2002. Right now, he's working with Hyundai to create a perfect recreation of the iconic Hyundai Pony Coupe concept that was shown at the 1974 Turin Motor Show. By the way, Giorgetti isn't just a car designer. He also designed camera bodies for Nikon in the early 1980s. Back in 2023, he also designed the organ in the Cathedral of Lausanne that was made of some 7,000 pipes. He even developed a new pasta shape called Marielle. He also designed a few watch models for Seiko, mainly racing chronographs. And he's designed office furniture for the Okamura Corporation. By the way, did you know that Hyundai and Rivian share parts across their vehicles? Believe it or not, the front seat frames of the Rivian R15 and R1T are basically the same as those found in the Hyundai Ioniq 5. It was Rivian that made the decision to modify the basic design of the Hyundai seat. There are a few differences though. The plastic trims that come at the base of the seat are painted on a Rivian, whereas the ones used by Hyundai are unpainted. The thing is, unless you look really careful, it's almost impossible to spot the difference between the two. Rivian did add a lot of other plastic bits to make the seat back look more original, but all that really did was raise the overall manufacturing cost. Here's the thing you have to understand about the car industry. All car brands care about cost cutting to maximize their profits so they can have more to reinvest. Well, a quick and efficient way to cut manufacturing costs is to share parts with other brands. That's why you'll find Volkswagen parts on a Porsche and even BMW parts on a Rolls-Royce. Parts sharing is especially true for EV brands. Many of the brands on the EV market are just getting their models off the ground, so parts sharing has almost become a necessity. Chrysler and Ferrari are companies that also share parts. They're both connected through Stellantis, which owns many car brands. So it shouldn't be a surprise that Chrysler and Ferrari cars share some parts. Take the Ferrari California and Chrysler Sebring, for example. At first glance, these two vehicles may seem very different, and they are, except for their infotainment units. The Ferrari infotainment unit is basically just the Chrysler Sebring infotainment unit, but with its own logo and a silver finish instead. That said, this may not be the smartest idea for Ferrari to copy parts in this Chrysler, seeing that the Chrysler Sebring has been named one of the worst American cars ever made. But that's another story for another time. Another surprising example can be seen in the Aston Martin DB7 and the Mazda 323. Not only do these two cars share the same door handles, but the Aston Martin DB7 used the rear lights off a Mazda 323F as well. The thing is, these are two very different cars. Aston Martin did try to hide the origins of its tailgate lights by adding a plastic cowling, but it's still pretty noticeable. Now, I don't know if you ever watched the Jetsons on TV, but when you look at Hyundai's future, it almost looks like an episode from the Jetsons. That's because last summer, Hyundai and Rolls-Royce announced plans to join forces to build a fuel cell electric aircraft demonstrator by 2025. Just to be clear, I'm talking about the Rolls-Royce Holdings, the British aviation company, not Rolls-Royce, the luxury car maker that operates as a subsidiary of BMW. Rolls-Royce Holdings has a pretty long history in the aviation business, and it's a pretty big company too. I'm talking over 400 airlines that it serves. Here's the thing. In a battery electric car, the amount of power and energy is both closely related to the battery size. On the other hand, in a hydrogen fuel cell, the amount of energy stored on board is determined by the size of the hydrogen fuel tank. Fuel cell electric vehicles work by converting energy stored in molecules into electricity through an electrochemical reaction. They contain a cathode and an anode that are separated by an electrolyte membrane. Right now, it's not possible for battery-powered propulsion to fuel a larger aircraft over very long distances. That's why hydrogen fuel cells appear to be a viable alternative, because they can generate significantly more power and energy for a given weight. In addition, using hydrogen as a fuel source offers all of the benefits of electric propulsion, such as suppressed sound, low emissions, and long range. It's for these reasons that Rolls-Royce Holdings is extremely interested in hydrogen fuel cell technology. That's why the two companies are working together to bring their hydrogen fuel cell storage systems and infrastructures into the aerospace market. Hyundai Motor Group aims to tap into Rolls-Royce Holdings' aviation and certification expertise to accelerate the development of hydrogen fuel cell propulsion systems. What Hyundai brings to the table is experience working with hydrogen as an alternative fuel source. In 2013, Hyundai iX35 fuel cell became the world's first mass-produced hydrogen-powered car. Following that came the Nexo crossover, which was Hyundai's second-generation fuel cell vehicle. The goal of this joint venture is to fly with net zero carbon by 2050. But now you tell me, what's your perception of Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis? Do you trust these brands? Please share by commenting below. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for your support.